This is Loki of Literati coming to the realization that everyone wants to frame out their worldview as being absolutely true. And part of the main thing that I do is try to see what everyone's going through so that I can readjust my entire worldview. I know that, like anyone else, I would want my worldview to become a social movement too. And if that's what I'm hoping to do, that means that I have this responsibility to test every part of my worldview. If I have any kind of also intellectual agility, then I have an increased responsibility to use that to the best of my ability, to test my worldview, put it through the thought experiment, get hot and say, does every bit clear this? Is it harmonious? Does it fit within interactive community paradigm? Would I personally mind this? Does it fit the golden rule? Is this worldview? If I was in the disadvantageous position or the empowered condition from any vision, how would I feel about this? What's real? I find the evaluation skill, if you just unpeel it all down to just three simple layers, it's looking at mental behavior and immediately discovering the nature, then identifying the components, the characteristics of everything, minor and major, and, anything from which associations could branch off. In other words, what it is, what it's made of, what it does, or what it could do. And it's a good roll through, but being too empathic on anything immediately sends you right into someone else's worldview, and I find an increased responsibility to testify the thought experiment. It's a huge fundamental pillar of critical thinking, to bring it to the conversation scape, to use the tools of sociology and philosophy to clear that, and to really, really research all the details, NPR, and fact check everything. Every single shining star, testing it against logical fallacies, testing against the template of, does it stand the test of time? Ultimately, that's what it is. Seeds of the mind are children of man for those of us who don't want to father anyone, but still create a world that will last past our hands when we're nothing but dust in the sand. Will our mental uses in our groove become a social movement? Will we influence the world too? Whether a person has a following while they're living, or like many artists and prophets, after death is their greatest legacy left for the giving, and the truth of what you've been through and your evaluation of all of yourself, not getting caught up in the ego trap or anything else that takes you back too many steps to a singular position. It is really the primary condition of testing everything. If everything that we repeat to ourselves 10 times is, well, that's 10 crimes, that's Zen blind, that's what I mean by time and again minding the pen. My mind makes amends. Most writing is rewriting, and the scripts that we flip through in our minds, it's rewriting backwards in time to say what should have been done. Okay? Well, in a perfect world, I could rhyme a flurry like blind fury and be just as precise with every slice, but in this one, nothing ever quite comes out that nice. So at the end of every night, we reflect back, and I think there's too many discoveries that don't get tested, and that's my 100% goal, to be more effective, to raise my pedigree of self-awareness, self-consciousness. If I'm the sort of person who can jest off every little bit and find any little detail in a topic and not get off the rails even when I take that tangent anywhere, I'll just fucking rain quips like acid hail, but then bring it all back with quips so graceful and barely trying, just slipping there and here like tributaries without fear, comes back to the main river, back to the present, and everything that was felt in the tangents without hesitance. They all just kind of gel together into one sentence, like the delta of the Fertile Crescent. That's the source of all life. So when I get implored to get into everything nice, it's because every detail is what I fall in love with, not above any little bit. Is it truly effective, harmonious? Is it good for the collective? That's the very standard by which every thought experiment, before it even comes up in conversation, needs to be applied for any new thought. If any groove might ever become a social movement, it's got to be iron wrought, you know? It can't just be firing off because it feels good. And ultimately, every completed chamber of thought should be solid enough to be a movement. Because if not, then I'm on the brink of sinking into a hole on that as a man thinketh, so does his soul develop. I can't help it. We get addicted to what works for us, and so to assume that an advantageous result was the fault of one formula, well, okay, I got some hesitation in even finishing that thought because correlation is not causality. Everyone knows that. But that's part of the reason that I do these tests, these freestyles. That's part of why it's just me, to get my mind wild. It's part of why I rap. It's taking every single thing that I can unpack and compose into one big stack and say, okay, can I make it fall like a Jenga splat? And if not, then the whole thing is pat. It's solid. It's great. So, this was chapter 8. Spit first, transcribe later. This is Loki of Literati, and it's getting late. Good night.